now, the most underrated voice in all media. The alternative's alternative. Chuck Ocelli.
So Payday Monsanto bounces us into the second hour of the Ocelli Effect here on American Freedom Radio at AmericanFreedomRadio.com. My guest in the second hour has a show on here as well. Of course, he's not just a radio broadcaster, not just a running mouth like myself, but somebody who has actually innovated the research that you people often adhere to. You can go backwards. You can find out that a lot of the ideas that you hear being discussed in general today have actually originated with this man, Jordan Maxwell, okay? And before I forget, before I get lost in the conversation, let me just say this. You need to go to jordanmaxwellshow.com. That's the proper website, jordanmaxwellshow.com. In order to take a look at his work right now, I suggest you make your purchases through that venue. Any books you want, anything that you want of Jordan's material, et cetera, that's where I suggest you go. And there's a specific reason for it. So once again, jordanmaxwellshow.com. Also, when you go to that website, I do suggest that you look at what is described there as a research society you can join with and learn along with others there. It's actually amazing. Go to jordanmaxwellshow.com and check it out. Now, why? Okay. Here's the deal. We're going to discuss something a little bit different from what I usually talk about on this show. Fact is, I have had a fascination, especially as of late, but of course throughout the course of my entire lifetime, with the naming of individuals, with how people are named, with what the meaning of the paperwork is when someone is born, with what the meaning of the paperwork is when someone is married, with what the meaning of the paperwork, right? The straw man representation, all of these concepts. And I kind of just want to kick one question to Jordan Maxwell and see where it goes because, well, I already know. And if you don't, you need to listen because this is going to be some information that touches upon the reality that a lot of us think we live in. Keep that statement wrapped in your mind. Jordan, how you doing tonight?
Just fine, I think, but we'll find out as we go on. That's what Steve Allen said one time. They said, well, how are you doing? He said, I don't know, but we're going to find out soon enough.
Well, true enough. And, of course, last time you were scheduled to be on the show, little thing that you couldn't avoid, and it wasn't because I did something wrong or anything like that.
No, I know. I had to go to the doctor for my heart, just a checkup, and I was told it was going to be a little quickie checkup. And, it turned out to be a bit longer than that, so that's why I got home late and I couldn't do the show. But I'm awful sorry about that. But we're here now, so we'll move on.
Well, absolutely. And the thing is, I was so glad to hear that although you've had a little bit of a, let's just call it a challenge to your health as of late, you seem to be back on your feet and apparently feeling good enough to get back in the game here so that you can continue to give the great information that you always have. So I want to thank you for that. And, of course, rather happily welcome you back to doing so. So I'm extremely appreciative that you're taking this time with me tonight. And I kick it back again to the original question. I mean, let's think about it. What is in a name? I know what it says on my birth certificate. I know what it says on my ID. I know what it is that my parents named me and why. But there's a little more to this story than a lot of people think about, isn't there?
Yeah, there's a lot more. There's a world of knowledge that has been hidden from the world about names. Go back in the Bible, remember in the New Testament, it talks about in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In the beginning was the Word. And how do you come up with a word? How do you bring into existence a word? You spell it. So it's like casting a spell on someone. You you give it a name, and all of a sudden, it's a name that's put into your spirit. It's put into your mind, and now that name represents that person, that thing, that project. Space flight. Why those words, space flight? because it puts you into the mind of NASA and rockets and astronauts. So words are very important. And you put an S in front of word, and it becomes sword. Because words are like sword. You can cut somebody deeply. I mean, I know people who committed suicide because of something that someone said to them. It hurt them so far down deep in their heart, they committed suicide. So words are put there by a spell. Words are very important, and you don't find that out until you are in a federal court, not a state, federal court. And you're looking at 30 years in a federal penitentiary. Now, all of a sudden, you need a good lawyer who knows what the words mean and knows how to talk the talk and walk the walk, because your life is hanging in the balance. So words can make you happy. Words can put you in prison. Words can cause you to commit suicide. So words are very important. And, of course, the most important word in your life is your name. Man, you open up a real can of worms when you get to that, because you mess with the name General Electric. That's their name. And you mess with it and watch what happens. You're going to have a whole team of lawyers come down on you quick. You're going to be in a federal court. Why? Because you used a name that's not yours to use. And you used it. And it has to do with commerce, money, business. Well, that's why when you get married, you have to get a marriage license, because your name represents commerce. It represents money, and it represents a corporation. Corporations are a business. And so you are a corporation by law. You may not understand that, but you are a corporation just like General Electric, just like Ford Motor Company, just like Baskin-Robbins and Target. You are a corporation. And that's why when you pass away and you die, you are referred to as a corpse, because you're a corporation. Mm-hmm. So your name is a company. And so that's why when I see you with some woman that I know, and I say to you, you know, that woman I saw you with last night, yeah, she's bad company. And you say to me, mind your own business. Then I find out you're getting married and she's going to be your partner. Business, company, partner. Sounds like business to me. You're damn right it's business. That's why you need to get a license from the state. Why? Because you're going to be doing business with another partner. You're a corporation. She's a corporation. And so, and if the corporation, look at it, if your business, it may be monkey business, but whatever business you got with her, and I don't know what it is, but I suspect I know, and whatever business you got with her, you better think it over before you go signing contracts in the business with her. Because if the business don't work out, you're not going to the Lord and talk to God. You're going to court. You better bring your money and your house and everything you own, because we're just talking business now. Why? Right. Because that's what marriage is. That's why I always say, I've said so many times, these gay marriages, same-sex marriages, everybody's talking about the morality of it. I talk about the law. What is the law on it? The law is very simple. Marriage is a legal term in a court of law. It hasn't got anything to do with the Lord or how much you love somebody. No, we're talking business. This is why there should be no distinction whatsoever between same-sex couples, heterosexual couples. It should have nothing to do with that at all. That's morality. You can talk about that all you want, from being no morality to high morality. It doesn't matter. We're talking business. It's a marriage, meaning Ford Motor Company has got together with General Motors and they're going to do something together. Well, that's fine. You're two business corporations, but you better talk to the government first and find out what the laws are first before you go doing with any big business. You better get your lawyers talking first to the government.
It's only the government or a corporate entity that issues bonds, and they call it the bond of matrimony as well, right?
Yeah, boy.
And that's the truth. Now, what's interesting to me here, and I want to take you back to something you said, because you briefly said in the scriptures, right? Yeah. You have a discussion of marriage, and you have a discussion of, but even further back, you had said that when something was created, when you're created, now we're going to draw the parallel, you're created, you come into the world and you take your breath, therefore becoming alive. Okay, all of that happening. Here's an interesting thing, though. When I examine the way that looks in the scriptures, this is spoken. God speaks. Then creation happens. It seems like to me. It also seems like when they named the animals, when God basically says, name the animals, I mean, I'm loosely talking about, we're not looking at a written contract. We're not looking at a corporation. We're looking at a spoken spell of sorts that is granted in that way. This is the natural way that something happens, through the spoken word. The spoken word, seemingly to me, is extremely separate from the paperwork word. Why is that?
It's true, but you need to understand how the paperwork word operates to begin to appreciate the depth of the spoken word. The spoken word, of course, we all realize how important, because every day when you're using a person's name or a company's name, you know, you're talking business. You can talk, in a court. You bring up a person's name. So names and words are very important. But to go back onto how this is important and why it's important, it does go back quite literally thousands and thousands of years ago. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, it comes down to us from about the 15th century A.D., when there was a concept had been developed in the ancient world by the Romans, and probably goes all the way back to the Sumerians, because anything that was in Rome came from Greece and came from the ancient cultures before it. And so the idea was that in the ancient world, that there were only two things on the earth. It was earth, land, and water. So the ancients developed an idea that there were two kinds of law. There's the law of the land and the law of water. Well, we've heard that term, law of the land. Well, the law of the land simply means the law of the people who live on a particular piece of land. So the law of the land is not the same. You can't do things in Russia that you can do in South Africa. You can do things in America you can't do in Africa or Asia. So it's the law of the land, means the law of the culture of the people that live on that land. But there is another law which supersedes that, and that's the law of the sea. The law of, it's called maritime admiralty. That's why you have an admiral in the Navy. Why? Mm-hmm. Because maritime admiralty is based on Vatican canon law. Vatican canon law. That's why the Pope sits on the Holy See. And when you begin to break down the words and see how Vatican canon law is the basis for maritime admiralty law, and that came into existence the way we do it today in the 15th century. And today we say things like, money runs to your hands like water. No, money is water. It's called maritime admiralty. Mm. And another point I wanted to bring out is that the admirals are in the Navy. Well, the body of a church, if you fly over the top of a church or look at the blueprints of a church, the body of the church is called a nave, N-A-V-E. And therefore we get our word navy from maritime admiralty law, which is based on Vatican canon law. This stuff is really serious. This stuff is really trippy. When you start getting into words and your name, and maritime admiralty law, the law of the sea, and the Pope sits in Peter's chair, which is called the Holy See, and the Bible talks about the peoples of the nations being like the waves of the sea, and so now you get into the whole idea of the person's name And now you find out that your name, your very name, usually, most people have never heard the fact that when you were born, your name immediately goes on the stock exchange in New York. It's on the New York Stock Exchange. Why? Because your name is under international maritime water, the law of the sea, international maritime law. So your name is now a corporation. And you are going to not only grow like any company grows. And, I've seen people in your company and they grow, and I've seen you grow, and we all grow. And so that's what corporations do. They start off small, then they grow. But 79 to 80% of you is water. Mm-hmm. This is why if you get in trouble and you're in court, you're in hot water. And so now somebody's going to have to come and bail you out. That's what you do if your ship's taking out water. You have to bail that out and get rid of it.
Well, even at the beginning of life, right? You are birthed through the birth canal, right? Right? I mean, they birth ships, and ships go through canals. The birth canal. It's one of those amazing things.
And how does the water come through you? It goes through your blood vessel.
Right.
And so the whole thing is that the human race has developed a concept going back thousands of years to where words and terms and words and names are extremely important. And when you, as I said, you get into a federal court, you better shut up. If you don't have a license and if you haven't passed the bar, you have better shut up, sit down, and let the attorney and let the lawyer speak. Why? Because words can sink you. Keep your mouth shut. The lawyer knows how to talk and walk the walk. You don't know what those words mean. And what you need to realize, too, is that in any court, no matter how large or how small, the words that are passed between the attorneys and the judge are not the same meaning as they are in the streets. You can use terms out on the street and everybody knows what you mean, nothing to it. But if you use those same words out of your mouth before a judge explaining it the way you think it sounds right, you're going to end up in jail because those words don't mean the same thing in a court. It's called legalese. And so you need to be quiet. Let the person who's been trained in this system's law to know what to say and how to say it, because your name is a corporation. You are a company. And because you're a corporation, you have to operate your life as if you were a corporation. And because you're a corporation, I should say, you have certain perks. You can do certain things other people can't do. Only you with your name can do certain things with your name that I couldn't do. I can't put your name on my bank account and get a credit card in your name. No, only you can do it. Why? Because your name is a corporation. It's business. And you start messing with other people's money and messing with their business, and you can be in court over this because it's a business. So I'm just saying that once you begin to realize how, as you said, you've come down the birth canal and your water broke, your mother's water broke and you came out and you were born. This is why in Christianity, when you want to be born again, you have to get baptized. You go out in the water and go under and come out. Why? Because you're in mother water. You're in mother earth, mother nature. The earth is your mother. Mother nature, she's the one that gave birth to you. You weren't born on Jupiter and came here. You're here. So the earth gave birth to you. So you've got to go back into mother's water, mother nature, and be baptized. And now you are born again. All of this has to do with banking.
Even the word born is interesting because what does a vessel on the ocean do? It bears a load. So something which is born on the vessel, is born on the, even when you listen to nautical discussion, see again, it's right there in your face in the language directly.
Right.
And even with the courts to talk about how confusing that is when you show up and you represent yourself allegedly, right? You are there pro se. Now it's pretty funny because it's a short leap to prosecute as opposed to pro se. But that's just a quick illustration of that, and I don't want to keep cutting you off, but it's all right in the language, though, isn't it?
It's in language. And incidentally, most people are not aware of the fact that English is a designed language. I've heard experts in linguistics listening to them long-winded explanations of how we got English. English is a designed language. Whoever put English together and the way it evolved and kept coming together until finally we have modern day English. Somebody or some bodies, probably monks and seminaries, ultimately designed our language, because the church has so much to do with our language and the way we view words. So it's probably monks in the seminary who put the English words and put the English together. Why? It's because English gives you a particular mindset. I've heard, and I'm not the authority, I'm just telling you what I heard from authority, that English gives you a mindset to view things, business and personal, to view things a certain way. The Chinese do not say things the way we do, The Orientals do not say things the way we do. They're talking about the same thing, but they say it in a different way. And they view history in a different way. They don't view it the way English people do. So words are very important to the culture. And, of course, a culture is something you look at under a microscope. And so that's what we are. We're a culture. We are a growing corporation, a growing culture that's using words. And one of the most important words, like we said, is your name. Your name is on the New York Stock Exchange. When you are born, you are being bought and sold as a commodity on the New York Stock Exchange. And this is why if you've got a Social Security card, you look on the back of your Social Security card and you will see a set of numbers with a letter and a set of numbers. And the reason why is because if you take a dollar bill out, take a regular dollar bill, 5 or 20, it doesn't matter. Take out an American Federal Reserve note, lay it on the table, and take the back of your Social Security card, that number, and line it up with the serial number on the bill. And you will begin to see that's the same way. It's got a letter and then the same amount of numbers. It looks the same. Why? Because it is the same. Your very name has been given a Social Security number, and that number is on dollar bills, 5s, 10s, 20s, 100s. And so any bill you have, somebody's Social Security number is on that bill. You just didn't realize it. And that's why when you sign your name on a check, the lawyers will tell you, check the fine print. Read the fine print before you sign on the dotted line. Always. And you'll hear people saying all the time, well, sign on the dotted line. And the attorney said, well, you better check the fine print. The devil's in the details. What are you talking about? Take a magnifying glass and pull out your checkbook if you have one and look at the dotted line that you sign on with the magnifying glass, and you will find out they're not dots. They're letters. It's the fine print right in front of you, and you signed your name on it, agreeing to what is printed on that fine print. You just signed your name on it. The lawyer told you, read the fine print. Well, where's the fine print? You just signed on it, airhead. You just signed it, right? And you thought it was a dotted line. That's because your eyes are bad. Get a magnifying glass and look what you just signed. So the point being is that, that's why we, as I said, why do you have banks? Why do you have to sign a check in a bank? Because they're going to check on you. In England, the head of the British Bank is called the Chancellor of the Exchequer, because he's checking on everything. How much money did you put in and what went out and where did it go? He's checking everything. That's why you're writing a check. So when you start seeing how the banks operate because of your name and your body as a security on the stock exchange, and why do you even use a bank? Banks are on both sides of a river. It's called a river bank. What does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency. Because your money is a currency. That's why you got fives and tens and all. It's just an ebb and flow. The money comes in, the money goes out. The money comes in, the money goes out. Right, because that's the way the water is. The current, it comes in, the tide comes in, it's going back out again. And so, and the Bible even talks about the human race as being knocked about like the waves of the sea. And that's true. Everybody's going to vote for the Republicans. And then later on we find out they're a bunch of criminals. Everybody's going to vote this year for the Democrats. And then you find out they're a bunch of criminals. Everybody's going to vote for the Peace and Freedom Party. Everybody's going to do that. And every damn time you find out, no, it's just a bunch of criminals doing what they normally do. Well, then we're going to vote for this guy. So like the waves of the sea, you're bouncing back and forth and back and forth, and you're going nowhere. Why? Because you are a corporation under international maritime law, and you are so ill-informed and unread, you have no idea how the world really works. And that's why I've said, and you've heard me say it before, the people of America, like the rest of the world, but I'm only concerned about my own people. The people of America have no power to do anything, period. We can brag about how we can elect our leaders, but you can't select your leader. You can only elect, not select. And therefore, we have the right to elect our leaders. But you don't have the right to know and do anything. Why? Is because you have no power. The American people are quite literally powerless to do anything. We can see all the problems, but you can't do anything about it. You can cry about it because we have freedom of speech, and you can bitch and moan and bellyache about it, but you can't do anything about it. Why? Simple. Because knowledge is power. You ain't got none. And the people who do have the knowledge to make things happen, like George Carlin says, it's a big club, son, and you ain't in it. Well, unless you understand how the guys who run this planet really work, it ain't going nowhere. You can cry all you want. If you don't understand how this world really works, you got no power. You better go back and do some homework. That's my feeling.
Absolutely, and it's fascinating to me that, of course, we are mostly water, and what happens to water on land, well, the direction of it is definitely dictated to it by the banks on each side of it. Isn't that fascinating as well? Jordan, a bunch of people, by the way, and because I take Skype questions and comments, a bunch of them generally just wanted to say thank you. Daniel, Kevin, and Jennifer all together. Actually, I got 3 of them there that are just saying basically thank you for all of your work and all the things that you've done over the years. But I've also got a couple of questions, if you don't mind, and I want to throw them in.
Because you got questions doesn't mean I know the answer.
Well, no, but it doesn't mean that I couldn't ask them either. I could ask them whether you got the answer or not, right?
No, I know, because I always say I'm not the world's foremost expert on anything. I'm just what I bring to the table. The value of what I do, I believe, from my point of view, are the people that I have met in my life, the things which I have been exposed to and heard from masters, from profoundly important people high up in world government, high up in world religion and finance, that I've been blessed to be able to be in their company. I don't know how it happened, but I'm sitting with some of the most powerful people in the world that you don't know that I know. And you haven't heard what I've heard. And so the only value I see in what I do, and I got to be careful in what I say, because, you can get whacked if you talk about it too much. But the only thing I bring to the table, it doesn't mean I'm a world foremost authority on anything, but I just have heard a lot of stuff that you would not believe from people who are in a position to know So that's why I always say, if you're asking me a question, I don't know, I'll try and answer, but I'm not an authority. I say that because that also diffuses my enemies, and God knows I've got plenty of them. I've got plenty of enemies that are trying to destroy my name and destroy everything I do. Why? Because somebody's scared to death of what else I know that they know that I know that I might talk about. So when you see a lot of people bad-mouthing me, just realize it. What goes around comes around. The reason I'm being ridiculed and all the stuff you're reading about me is because somebody knows. If I start talking about the stuff I really know, we got some serious problems in this country all of a sudden overnight. I can tell you things about famous people you have never heard. So,
well, I would love to have that kind of knowledge, but you're right. If you really speak some of the most profound and specific truths, this is usually when you catch a bullet. I mean, that's what the reality is.
That's the reality, boy.
Like, I even feel like, when you look at the Kennedy assassination, not only was it the diversion away from Vietnam, but the fact that this man basically said to the world that we don't need to continue on with the warfare against one another. This is unnecessary. I truly feel as though that was another reason why he had to be gotten rid of.
The whole military-industrial complex of the world, that all the armies of the world, and all of the corporations and defense contractors and all the big money, they said, what? What in the hell did that goofball just say, that we don't need war? You're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars a month in business around the world based on war. And this goofball is going out and say, we don't need to have war? We don't need to have him.
Yeah,
this guy is going home to see the Lord. We've had enough of this bullshit.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly how you get yourself killed. I mean, look, Martin Luther King Jr. challenged challenged the military-industrial complex and caught a bullet as well. That's the reality. So I can understand why it is you don't want to necessarily give all of the cards that you're holding close to your chest. Yeah, the rest, like a man on the radio used to say all the time, the rest of the story.
Yeah, that's Paul Harvey. Yeah.
Paul Harvey, that's right. You see, probably only you and me know that name, but it's because I'm like a radiophile and just nuts about talking.
I'm just an old man. I've heard it all. I've heard it all. All the stuff that you're hearing about, all the corruption and politics and government and organized crime and all. I'm almost 76 years old. I've heard it all. I've been all around the world. I've heard all the stories. I've heard all the jokers, the people who think they know what's going on. I've heard all the politicians and the mafia and La Cosa Nostra and astronauts. I've been all around the world. I've heard all kinds of stuff you can't believe. So that's why I'm never impressed with any of it. A lot of young people are hearing things today that are exciting and new, and I think, oh, are you kidding? I heard that back in 1954. For God's sake, and all this newfangled stuff, no, I heard it all many years before. That's why the military and governments do not draft old men. They draft young men because the young men
know
have
better.
To fight. They have no idea in the world what's going on. You're just a kid. Put a uniform on you, and the girls think you look great, and everybody's proud of you and serving your country. You're not serving your country. Think back. You need to wake up and find out what's really going on here and how this world really works. This is this goes into why Obama doesn't need a birth certificate. Obama does not need a birth certificate. When he says he doesn't need one, he doesn't. By law, he does not need a birth certificate by law. That's the law.
Right.
And so, why? Well, there's a little trick you didn't know. Little trick that's not really very important, but you didn't see it. There's a big difference between the word United States and the words United States of America. Doesn't mean the same thing. Better go back and check a law dictionary. You can be the president of the United States, but you're not the president of the United States of America. Get it? Right. Very simple, very clever, and you didn't see it. So that's a whole story, my God, we could get into and talk about all the stuff that's going on in the 1871, what happened back before your grandmother was born, back in 1871, with the founding of a privately owned corporation. It was a company that was founded. You know, a corporation's been going all the way back to, my God, probably to before the United States of America was founded.
Right.
And then you find out the United States of America was a corporation to start with, set up by the British East India Company in India. What's all that about? And did you know that in Bhopal that there is a temple that is estimated to be between 5,000 and 6,000 years old in Bhopal, India, where on the chiseled on the wall of that temple is an American flag and a British Union Jack flag with a unicorn holding up a shield with a lion on the other side. The symbols for the British, unicorn and lion holding up a shield, and the Union Jack flag and another flag with stars on it. Are you aware that all of this stuff is 5,000 to 6,000 years old? You better wake up. This world is not what you think it is. I mean, it's just amazing how much people don't know.
Well, absolutely. And turning to how people don't know, and something that I bring up all the time and I get a lot of backlash on. And you know what? I want you to correct me. I talk a lot about the Vatican. And the reason is that I think it is one of the most underrated, pieces of game equipment here on the planet. And yeah, I selectively said it exactly that way. And one of the questions here comes from that. What are Jordan's views on the current Pope and his radical 180 on some of the church's doctrines? And also, what are your thoughts on the prophecy of the Black Pope? Now, before you get into this question, I believe, and this is my belief, and like I said, correct me, it seems to me as though we have a triad of control at this time that goes from the Vatican to the City of London to the District of Columbia.
That's right.
Okay. And this is the triad that is pushing most of what's happening on this planet. I mean, the perpetual warfare, the continuous use of usury, the fact that the banks are manipulating the flow of all of that, which is 80% water, because take a look at a river. Most of what's in that river is water, but probably about 20% of it isn't. So it probably matches up to what you are. Just another bit of thought there. But about the Catholic Church, a lot of people yell at me and say that I'm just being negative regarding Vatican City and stuff like that. Yeah. But what are your views on like I said, the Black Pope, the change in the doctrines, all that?
Yeah, first of all, you don't want to ask me what my views are on the Vatican, because I'm going to go on for 8 hours, and I'm going to tell you stuff you've never heard. I can tell you stuff that'll blow your mind about the Vatican. I know what I'm talking about, because I've been looking at this for 55 years. First of all,
it links right to the birth certificates, too, doesn't it?
You can bet on it. That's exactly right. The whole concept in Judeo-Christian civilization on the earth is that God owns the earth. He owns the universe. Everything, God owns it all. But since God ain't here, he gave it to his son, Jesus. Jesus is God's son, the light of the world. Of course the sun is the light of the world. But Jesus is the God's son, so God has given him the keys, the 2 keys. Peter has 2 keys, the keys to government, the keys to spirituality. And the church is in charge. When you're born, the church is there. When you get married, the church is there. When you die, the church is there. So they got you coming and going. And so that's why we say all roads lead to Rome. Why? All roads lead to Rome. Because once you understand how the world works, for over 2,300 years, maybe 2006, whatever it is, Rome has ruled Europe. going all the way back to the beginnings of the Roman Republic, the Roman Empire, and then finally under the democratic Roman Empire, the People's Revolutionary Roman Empire, the Roman Empire. Rome has dominated Europe for about 2,400 years. And Europe has dominated the world for 2,400 years. All roads lead to Rome. Caesar proclaimed himself emperor of the world. And you want to complain about that? Try it. And so today, where was Caesar, the emperor of the world? He was in Rome. That's right. And that's why today, all over the world, I don't care if you're communist, Nazi, fascist, it doesn't matter what you are. You better go to Rome, and you better kneel in front of the Pope and kiss his ring and smile and get pictures taken with the Pope. Because the bottom line is, he calls the shots, big boy. He wants you out. All he's got to do is talk to one of his cardinals. They'll call the Bank of England. Your country is repossessed, and your country is now at war with another country. Why? Because all roads lead to Rome. I don't care if they're military, if it's finance, if it's religion. All of Protestant Christianity around the world was born in Rome. That's what that's where we get the word Protestant, because they were protesting against Rome.
Right, and not only that, but I mean, even if you look in a Methodist Bible today, they'll tell you that that it is subject to the Catholic Church, number one. Right. Number two, interesting thing when you say all roads lead to Rome, it's not just a phrase. In fact, if you take a look at the superstructure of the majority of the system of roads in the country we now call England right now, their roads are still based on the original Roman architecture.
That's exactly right.
That's the truth of it. So the fact is that it seems to me as though, now just follow my logic for a moment, Jordan, and again, correct me if you think I'm just talking crazy here, but the fact is that Rome effectively conquered, controlled England, thusly afterwards, the English came to America. It is them who we allegedly had to break away from. It's debatable whether we succeeded in breaking away from. But point is that the new establishment was then had there in the District of Semiramis, Columbia, which is a wholly other-owned something of the corporation, and these things all seem to be, just tentacles of one another. This is why I describe this triad this way, because I sort of have a grasp on some of the history that, as much as they have stolen, that is still evident even in the most rudimentary understanding today. Wouldn't you say so?
Exactly right. And in England, there's a world of difference, a night and day difference between English and British. Brit, and it comes from a Hebrew word, B-R-E-T-H, Brit. A Brit in Hebrew is a contract. You're going to buy a new home or a car in Israel, the ancient Israel today, you're going to be signing a Brit. A Brit is a contract. Well, a contract is a covenant. Okay, so you're signing a covenant then, that you're going to pay somebody. You're signing a covenant or contract, which gives us our word. Covenant gives us our word coven, like a witch's coven, because it's a covenant. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so there's a world of difference between English and British. Brit comes from the word berith, which is a contract, and ish in Hebrew is man or men. I-S-H is man or men in Hebrew. Therefore, berith-ish is a contract or covenant man. Man of the contract. What contract? Well, man of the covenant. What covenant? What are you talking about, covenant? Well, they're the British. Ish is Hebrew. Berith is Hebrew. The whole thing has to do with Jewish banking in the city. It's called the city. C-I-T-Y. The city is a 1 mile square. I think it's 1 mile square in the middle of London. So when you go to London, you're in London, but you're not in the city. Ask anybody who lives there, and they will tell you, no, the city is 1 mile square in the middle of London, and that is not part of England at all. It's not part of England. It's like the United Nations in New York City. United Nations is not in America. When you
Well,
walk on the property, none.
Neither is the District of Columbia in the United States. It's not a state. It's not one of the United States.
Not a state at all. Exactly. So people don't know that. So anyway, you got that 1 mile square, and it's called the city. Well, the city is the home of all the international bankers of the world, and all the international banks are based on the Knights Templars. So when for the Knights Templars, well, go back and watch Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. That's Knights Templar. Go back and watch Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That has to do with Knights Templars. Well, who were the Knights Templars? Well, they are the people who you refer to today as international bankers out of Geneva, Switzerland, Belgium, London, New York, the York, England. Well, now we have New York. The empire strikes back, so we call it New York Empire, the Empire State. Mm-hmm. I'm just telling you that there's a world of knowledge that's called occult. Too many people think the word occult means devil worship and demonism. No, the word is a Latin word. Occult simply means hidden. So when you put your hand in your pocket, you have an occult hand by dictionary definition. Your hand is hidden. So I'm just saying that 99.96% of everything you think you know is not true, because the real truth is hidden. It's called occult knowledge, secret societies, secret stuff being passed around that only those people in the know, and now again, that's what George Carlin said. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. So once you understand how banks really work, not how you thought they worked, then for the first time you'll find out why we have to have police. Why do you have police? Because our government is based on banking. It comes from the British Maritime Admiralty jurisdiction, coming out of the British Empire in India, the British East India Company. You have police because today, when this country was founded back in 1776, in that time, is totally different after the Civil War. After the Civil War, you do not have the United States of America because the states are not united. They just killed each other. And so they are not united. So back up and don't say they're united. The North don't give a damn about the South. And the South killed a lot of people from the North. So we're not united. Well, everybody is still here and the war is over, so what are you going to do? Well, I don't know, but don't call us united, because we don't forget the bloodshed. Right. And so they had to come up with another idea then to run the country. And so they said, in order to keep this thing going, because you got all these millions of people here, what are you going to do with them? Well, we're not united, so drop that. Well, then what we'll do is we'll start a corporation. Let's start a company and incorporate it in Delaware. We'll call it the United States Corporation. Well, that's just a company. Well, of course it's just a company. Well, and so you got to have a president of the corporation. Well, then we got a president of the corporation. Well, according to corporate law, you got to have a vice president of the corporation. Okay, so we got a vice president. Well, according to corporate law, you got to have a secretary treasurer. Okay, so we got a secretary treasurer of the United States Corporation, founded in 1871 as a privately owned company, as a municipal corporation, founded by a secret group of people that you don't even know exist. And they own what we call today the United States. It's the company. It's a corporation. Has nothing to do with the United States of America. No, that's a totally different subject. That went out with the Civil War. So now you need to go back, go to school, do something you've never done before, learn how to read, and start doing something that you've never done before. Start thinking. Start asking questions. Why do you need police? Well, because the way the corporation works, corporations like General Electric and Ford Motor Company do not rule the world. They only rule their corporation. So Ford Motor Company and corporations cannot issue laws. They don't issue law. Of course, they have their own laws within their company, but that's not God's law. That's not the world law.
Right.
That's not world court. That's just in their company. So they don't use the word law because it's not a law. You know, they tell you you have to go to, you have to be there at 7 and you have to check in and you can't go to lunch till 11. That's not a law. That's just their policy. Okay, so the corporation called United States just has a policy. They don't have laws. The United States of America, 1776, they could issue laws, but not the corporation, 1871. So they got a policy. Okay, so it's our policy. We want you here at 7 and you go to lunch at 12 and you go home at 4. So that's just our policy. Well, okay, so you got a policy now. And it applies to everyone. So therefore, everybody in the corporation has this policy. So it's called a public policy. Well, you got to have somebody who makes up those policies. Well, they're called politicians who make up the policy. Well, you got to have some arm behind it. You got to make sure that people listen. Well, then you have police backing up the policy of the politicians and the corporation. So policy, police, politicians, all of this goes back to the Roman and Latin words based on the British East India Company, based on how this world really works, what this country really is. It's one hell of a story. I mean, one hell of a story.
It absolutely is. And Jordan, we're nearly out of time. I want to say this.
We haven't even started.
We have not even begun to scratch the surface, but I love it every time I get a chance to speak with you because you bring up some amazing points. And here's the thing to keep in mind, and I hope I'm not stealing this from you, but if you've never heard this before, I would suggest you use it as well. You know, when you play a game of billiards, or you shoot a pool ball, right? What do you apply to that ball in order to make other actions happen, you know, vicariously as part of the connected reaction to what it is you set in motion? You use English to manipulate the outcome. Okay?
I love it. That's like they put that special English on it. Yeah, that's what the lawyers do.
You got to put that special English. Yes, sir. And that's what we have absolutely had. They have hidden it in plain sight. It is occult knowledge, but absolutely hidden in plain sight. That's the way I see it. Before we get out of here, though, I want you to talk about, because I talked about your website, JordanMaxwellShow.com. Once again, JordanMaxwellShow.com. That's the only place that I want you guys to go to get Jordan's work, to look into it, to read more, etc., etc. His show is on American Freedom Radio on Saturdays at 7 p.m. Pacific, which I think is, about 10 p.m. Eastern. Either way, take a look at it on American Freedom Radio, The Jordan Maxwell Show, and JordanMaxwellShow.com. But tell us a little bit, before we get out of here, about the Research Society.
Well, first of all, anything out there on the web that has Jordan Maxwell is not mine. There's all kinds of things out there, JordanMaxwell.com. That's not mine. Somebody's using my name and making money off of me, but it's not me. So
that's why I stress JordanMaxwellShow.com.
That's right. And there's a Jordan Maxwell Institute, and there's a Jordan Maxwell this. No, people are using my name to bring attention to their website. So anything that's out there besides Jordan Maxwell's show is not mine. So stay away from it. So anyway, what else was I going to say? Oh, yeah, and on the Jordan Maxwell Show, which is my podcast, I have another website called Research Society. All it is really is not a society. It's just another website. But it's where I'm uploading all of my research work that I can't put out in public. A lot of stuff I don't want to talk about in public. A lot of stuff I'm tired of giving to people for over 45 years, been giving out knowledge for free. And it costs me money to run a website and to have a webmaster and to do all the things that I need to do for the business of the website. So I'm charging $30 for a lifetime subscription to all of my work on the Jordan Maxwell Show. It's called Research Society. And let's do the show again.
That's right. Anytime on the Ocelli Effect. Jordan, Maxwell, and Leap here. Thank you both, and stay tuned to American Freedom Radio.
No rules, no rules, no taboo topics, no taboo topics, no fear of doom, no fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio, American Freedom Radio.